Hi there, my name is Ziggy Smith and I'm from Natural Medicine and Health, and today I'm going to show you how to make an effective herbal medicinal tea. How to make it exactly the right way. Okay, so we're ready to make our tea. Let's have a look at a couple of utensils and a couple of different things before we go ahead and actually make it. The first thing to think about is your water. Now, there are some folk who suggest that you should be using boiled water as opposed to boiling water. In other words, water that is not quite at the point of boiling, because in their opinion this scorches the material that you're using to make the tea. In my experience and in my training, I've always used boiling water. I don't find that it scorches the material, and what I do find, particularly for medicinal tea, is that it generates much more of the active ingredients that we want, and it releases any of the oils in the tea, in the dry material that we actually want. So for me, my choice is always boiling water. So, what sort of tea? Of course, there are a myriad of different forms of herbal tea that you can use. One format that you can get that in, of course, is tea bags. Easily obtainable from the supermarket and from the health food shops. My suggestion to you is that unless you are trying tea out for flavours, tea bags are not usually the best way to go. You can't be always very sure of the quality of the materials, and quite often they've been hanging around in the tea bags and in the boxes for quite some time. Alternatively, my preference is for organic dried material like this here. This is beautiful organic fennel tea. It's loose. One of the wonderful things about loose tea is that you can modify the amount of it that you're actually using. So if you want a particularly strong decoction, you can have 2 teaspoons per cup as opposed to simply 1, for example. So the utensils, the actual cup and teapot and so on and so forth that you might be using. Of course, teapot is always lovely. There's something very special about having herbal tea in a teapot, I think. A teapot is a fantastic way to go if you need to have more than just 1 cup at a time. Or if we're using fresh material, in which case you need to have at least double, if not triple, the amount of material in comparison to dried tea. Teapot, lovely way to go. One of the things that you will need, of course, is a strainer, so that as you pour your tea out, you're capturing your tea material in the strainer. There's nothing worse than trying to drink a nice cup of herbal tea and it's full of crunchy bits. One of the easiest ways, of course, to make your herbal tea is straight in the cup. And one of the ways that you can do that quite easily is to use a little tea measure. You can buy these in health food shops and in tea shops, and all you're really doing is opening them up, putting a little bit of the dried material into the container, closing it up, and then popping that in your cup and then just leaving it there. That's one way to do it, and they come in a variety of designs, really easy to use. However, my favourite is this little contraption here, which is really just a mesh cup. And this is fantastic because unlike this, which will only let you use about 1, maybe 2 teaspoonfuls of material at a time, this allows you to use much more material. Now again, if you're using fresh material instead of dried material, perhaps for instance you're using fresh chamomile flowers instead of dried chamomile flowers, to get the same effect from fresh material, you need to use at least double, if not triple, than you would with dried material. So having a container of this size gives you a much greater option to use more material if you want to. Additionally, if you want a really strong decoction, then this again is a fantastic way to go. You're simply putting your dry material in your little container and popping it in your cup. Now, one other little trick that is really helpful for really good quality herbal tea, particularly when it's medicinal, is to have a lid for your cup. Why do we want a lid on our cup? Well, when the boiling water hits the material that you're using to make the tea, it will help to release all of the active ingredients in that tea. And those active ingredients will be in the steam that's produced from that tea as well. Steam rises, we want to capture all of that, so the steam will rise, hit the top of your lid and fall back into your tea. In addition to that, many forms of herbal tea have an oil component. Peppermint tea, for instance, has an oil component, and when you pour the boiling water on that, you help to release that oil. That's what you want to make a good, effective medicinal cup of tea. And so that will be captured in the lid and will drip back down into your cup as well. So a lid is always the best way to go. If you don't have a cup with a specific lid, you can always pop on a little saucer. That will do just as good a job, or put a plate over the top while your tea is steeping. So let's make our tea. I'm going to be having fennel tea today. Always lovely for sore tummies, even fantastic for little babes. I'm having 1 cup of tea, so I'm just going to have 1 teaspoon of tea, and I've popped that straight into my little container, and I'm going to put that in my cup. We get our water on the boil. Remember, we want boiling water, not water that's off the boil. My water in my kettle is now boiling. So I'm going to pour that into my cup. And I'm immediately going to put my lid on. Now, the amount of time that you leave your cup of tea to steep for depends on a number of factors. It depends on the material type that you're actually using, be that fresh or dry. It also depends on the format of that material. So is it root or is it flowers? And it also depends on how strong you want it as well. So the first point, whether it's fresh or whether it's dried, fresh material already contains far more moisture than dried material. So if you're using fresh chamomile flowers, for instance, versus dried chamomile flowers, you might want to steep it for just a little longer. Then if you have something light like flowers, we'll use chamomile again as an example, versus something heavy, perhaps like licorice or ginger. Licorice and ginger, the parts of the plant that are used are the root or the rhizome, whereas in chamomile we're using the flowers. Flowers and seeds release their active ingredients much faster than root and rhizome. So for chamomile, you might only leave it to steep for 2 to 3 minutes. For something like ginger or licorice, or something where you're using the root of the plant, you might leave that to steep for anything up to 5 minutes, maybe even 10 minutes. And if you want a really strong cup of tea, particularly for medicinal purposes, you might want to pack double the material in, but also leave that to steep for anything up to 10 minutes in order to really get the active ingredients and the active oils of your materials working in your tea. So we will leave our tea, fennel tea, it's a seed, so it only needs 2 to 3 moments or so to steep, and we'll come back to it. So by the magic of video, our tea has been steeping now for about 3 to 4 minutes, and it should be ready. And if we take the lid up, You'll see the lovely liquid from the steam that's been trapped in there. We want that back in there. I'm going to take my little material catcher out. And voila, I have a beautiful cup of fennel tea that will help resolve tummy ills and tummy pains, and it also tastes delicious. My name is Ziggy Smith and I'm from Natural Medicine and Health, and it's been a pleasure to share this video journey with you.